Hey there, Pro Church Media community, this is Jason again. In this tutorial, let's take a look at offset paths and how you can use them quickly and effectively to create really cool looks. I posted a quick walkthrough on how to do this a few days ago, but I thought I'd go back in and just kind of give you a few more ideas and techniques of how you can push this style even further, because there's a lot more you can do with it. And the best part is we're going to be looking at how to do it in both Illustrator and in After Effects, just to add a little bit of animation to it, just kind of take it to the next level, maybe use it as like an Instagram story or something like that. So without further ado, let's get right into it. We're going to start here in Illustrator. I'm just going to kind of get rid of what I already have here, and we'll start from the beginning. So I want to start with just getting the pen tool, make sure I have it using a stroke. I'm going to use just 3-point stroke here, but you can use whatever you want, obviously. And then I'm just going to start kind of drawing around this person right here. You can use as many points as you want, make it as intricate as you want, as simple as you want. Kind of just depends on what style you're going for. I'm just kind of loosely and roughly outlining the hands and the arms and the body and the head and things like that. So nice thing is, since it is the pen tool, you can go back in and move all these points around as you want to, tweak them as needed, all that kind of good stuff. So close it off there. We have our first path here. So what I want to do, I mean, you could obviously go around and just draw another line around there again, keep doing that over and over, which could be pretty tedious, or you could let offset paths help you out. So let's do that. So make sure your stroke is selected here. Come up to Object, then go to Path, and then say Offset Path. You're going to get this little dialog window here. And if you hit preview, you can see what it's going to do, and you can see it's outlining it by 10 pixels. And you can choose, if you want these joins here to be rounded, you could choose round. You can see what that does. You could choose bevel and get a different look. I'm just going to stick with miter here. And so I think that's looking pretty good. I'll keep it at 10, hit OK. And so it automatically selects the new offset path. So you could just go to Object, Path, Offset Path again. If you want to hit preview again, you can. You can choose a different offset. I'm going to keep them equidistant, so I'll just hit OK, and then I'm just going to keep repeating that process over and over. I'm just going to keep hitting Enter, just because I know it's going to default to the last value. Maybe do like 6 or 7 of these offset paths, and we'll call it good. And the nice thing is these are actually all individual paths, so if you wanted to go in and add some variation to them, you can do that if you want to. So kind of the sky's the limit as far as the creative application of this is concerned. So I think that's looking pretty good. Let's lock that layer down. Let's make another kind of outline here. Maybe I'll choose a nice red color to go with this over here. So maybe a deepish red, maybe like that. Get my pen tool again. You can hit P to bring that up. And then I'm just going to come down here and just kind of start drawing some more jaggedy lines. And you can be as careful with this as you want to, as loose with it as you want to. I'm just kind of quickly going through here, just kind of keep things moving along. I'm trying to get some variation because you can see with some of these offset paths, it varies it up because it has to get them to work together. So the more variation you have, the more interesting shapes you're going to get. So I'm just going to keep going along here, maybe bring a big one out there like that. Whatever you want to do, whatever works for your look that you're going for. I think we're almost done here. Close it off, and I think that'll be okay. All right, so we're going to do the exact same process. So Object, Path, Offset Path, put on the preview. And one thing you might notice, if you have your miter limit really low, like I think it defaults to 4, you might get something like this where you have this really sharp point right here, but then it kind of plateaus it off like that. If you want to keep that point going, you're just going to have to increase the miter limit, and you can kind of see what it does. And so there's probably some formula of what works. Just increase the miter limit until it works. And I think I'll keep it at 10, so we'll go with that. We'll keep repeating that process over and over. Offset path, offset path. Actually, let me show you one quick thing before I keep going with this. Let me delete a few of these layers. There's another way you can do this that can kind of create some really interesting looks. That's kind of fun. So let me just kind of start from the beginning. So I'm going to go to Object, Path, Offset Path, and I'm going to really increase the offset here really quick. So something maybe like that. All right, so now I'm going to use something called the blend tool. So if you click this, you can click one point here and then one point down here, and it's going to add steps in between. Right now it's only adding one because of the settings. So if you double click on this, instead of smooth color, if you tried something like specified steps and put on preview, you can start to add in steps between, and you can see it's adding some really interesting variations in there. And so you can kind of get some really creative looks with this. It's not the most precise tool, but it can be kind of fun to add some interesting effects if that's kind of what you're going for. So that's just another way you can kind of play around with this if you want to. So I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to go back to the offset paths. Just kind of go with what we were going with. So back to 10, and I'm just going to keep doing that over and over. And so you can see this is a really quick way to just kind of add some really interesting elements to your artwork without a whole lot of effort. Maybe one or two more and I think we'll be done. All right, so I already showed you that you can go into each individual path, and vary it up if you want to. So if you want to get kind of more of a, handmade look, you can do that, but let's push that even further. So I'm going to select the entirety of this layer here. I'm going to come up to Effect and go to Distort and Transform and then click Roughen. And make sure your preview is on. You can see immediately this is just a real hot mess. So I'm going to choose Absolute, maybe put this down to let's say 2. Maybe put the detail down to 2. And maybe something like 3. Maybe, you just kind of play around with it until you get what you want. And you can see we're getting some nice variation in there. And it kind of feels a little more hand-drawn just because it's roughening those edges a little bit. And so I think that's kind of a fun look. And so I might just now select my white layer here and go to Effect, Apply Roughen. It's going to apply the exact same thing. And so now we have this nice variation going on and didn't really have to do a whole lot to get that. So one more thing you can do to push this even further if you want to is something called the variable or the width tool. And so you just click this width tool here, which is also Shift W, and then you can come into your strokes here and just kind of bulge them out. You can bring them in, things like that. And so you can really quickly get some just nice hand-drawn variation in the width of your strokes. And so I'm just kind of clicking and dragging on these kind of in and out, just kind of get some different widths going. And so you'll get some different stroke sizes and stuff like that. And so you could pretty quickly and easily go in there and just make this all look very hand-drawn if you wanted to. So that's just another way you can push this a little bit further in Illustrator. So hope that gives you some great ideas on how you can just make some awesome looks with offset paths in Illustrator. But now let's go ahead and go into After Effects and see how we can animate this. All right, so I'm here in After Effects, and basically what I have is kind of the same type of thing. The offset paths, I'm just having some nice little wiggle going on, some almost decay effects going on with this. And so we're going to see how to pull this off really quickly and easily. Now you could import your Illustrator artwork if you wanted to, but I'm also going to show you how to create it in After Effects in case you haven't already used Illustrator, or maybe you don't have Illustrator. So let's get rid of these lines first, and we're going to basically do the exact same process. So I want to get my pen tool, make sure I have a stroke. I'm just going to do white, and basically just kind of do the exact same thing. Just kind of draw an outline around this guy. Again, you can do as much intricacy as you want, as loose as you want. It really just depends on what look you're going for. I think this is going to look pretty good. Getting there, and I think I'll close it off and we're good to go. Okay, so you kind of create offset paths in almost the same way in After Effects. It's a little bit different though, and requires just a little bit more steps, but it's not too bad. So you want to dig down into the contents of your shape layer. You're going to have this shape 1. So you want to duplicate that, and you'll have shape 2. And then you want to come over to Add, click that little button, and then go to Offset Paths. And you can see it's basically doing exactly what it did in Illustrator. So in Offset Paths, it's going to give you the amount, the miter limit, the joins, basically just like After Effects. The problem is that every time you duplicate this, it's just going to basically stack it on top of the other one because you have to go in to the offset paths and change the amount to offset it more. And so that can get kind of tedious to have to keep digging down into these. So there's a little trick you can do to kind of make it a little bit easier on yourself. So basically just set a keyframe here for the amount at the first frame, and then you can close that off, maybe duplicate this like however many times you know you want to use it. So I'm just going to duplicate it like 7 more times. And then just click U, and it's going to pull up all the keyframed properties. And so now I can just go in and say, 20, then 30, 40, so on and so forth. And so it's a really easier way to get to those properties without having to dig down to each one of them. And now you can see we have all our paths offset, basically just like we did in Illustrator. And so that's a pretty easy way to do that. So let's call this lines 1, lock it off, not solo it, lock it off, okay. Now we're gonna make our second kind of jaggedy line. So select the pen tool again, and then I'm gonna choose that kind of reddish color again. You could also sample it if you wanted to. Maybe we'll do something like that, a little bit brighter. And then let's just go in and start drawing our lines again. And again, you can do this as intricately as you want to, as carefully as you want to, kind of just depends on what you're going for. So I'm just gonna try to quickly get through this. I think that looks pretty good. And now we're just gonna do the exact same process here. So duplicate that shape, add the offset paths, add a keyframe there at the first frame, and then just duplicate this quite a few more times. And actually you can see we have that miter problem, so maybe I'll undo that real quick. And maybe in this I'll just increase the miter limit quite a bit. Now we can duplicate that some more and we shouldn't have any problems. And so now we'll hit U to pull up all those keyframed properties, and then just go in and change these values by 10. I purposely did 10 just to make it easy to add. And so I think we're almost there, looking great. And we have our offset paths just like that. Okay, so let's call this lines 2. Now let's get some animation going on this. So the first thing I want to do is I'm going to add something. We basically did the roughen edges in Illustrator, so we're going to do almost kind of the same thing here in After Effects. So I'm going to just come to Effects and Presets. If you type in roughen, you're going to get roughen edges. And immediately it's going to get rid of most of what you did just because there's all those lines. And so you kind of just have to play around with some of the settings to kind of bring those back. And so I kind of want almost a decayed look like that, which I think looks pretty good. You can maybe increase the edge sharpness if you want to. Kind of just depends on what you're going for, how much fractal influence there is, the scale, maybe something like that. You can stretch the width and stuff like that. I kind of almost want that up and down type of look. How much complexity there is, I think I want more complexity. All right, so now I think that's looking pretty good. Let's go ahead and animate this. So you could animate the evolution if you wanted to, but an easier way, and to kind of get that more choppier, kind of almost stop motion look, is to just animate the random seed. So we're gonna add a quick expression to this. And so what I wanna do is just alternate click on this stopwatch. It's gonna pull up the expression field. And then I'm just going to type in time times, say, 8. And so that's basically going to say, give me a new random seed every 8 frame, or whatever the 8 stands for. Maybe it's 8 frames, I don't know. But so now you can see it's kind of giving us that almost stop motion-y feel, and I think it looks pretty cool. And so we'll go with that. I say we have that part of it down. Now I want to add another effect just to kind of give it a little bit of movement. So let's go to Effect, Distort, and then Turbulent Displace. And you can see it's already starting to displace it a little bit, and if you start to play with these values, you can kind of see what it does. I don't want it to be too dramatic, so maybe like 20, maybe we'll do like 20 and 30. Let's see what that looks like. And then we're going to do the exact same random seed thing. So if you come down to Evolution Options, Alt-click on Random Seed, time times 8, times 8, and now we'll see what that looks like. Yeah, so now we're getting this nice kind of distorted, grainy, decay kind of look, and I think that looks pretty cool. You can tweak all these settings if you want to, like if you don't want it to be so turbulent. but you just want a little bit of movement and probably needs a little bit more, maybe more complexity, maybe a little bit less. You know, you can kind of just play around with it, dial in your settings until you really get a look that you like. That might be kind of cool. Yeah, that looks pretty nice. Okay, so now that I have that done, I can just copy the entirety of my effects on this first one and then just paste it here. And we should get the same sort of effect over there. Let me turn the resolution down, and now we can't see it. Let's try that. Yeah, that looks kind of cool. Yeah, and maybe it's just a bit too much. You can also choose different types of displacement, like maybe I'll do a cross displacement for that, and maybe for this one too, see what that looks like. Yeah, that might be too much. We'll just leave it at turbulent, and you can kind of just, you know, play around with it until you dial in what you like and get what you like. So yeah, there we go. So this is just some ideas of how you can push the offset paths just a little bit further in both Illustrator and After Effects. Hope this tutorial is helpful. Hopefully it gives you some great ideas. Go out there and create some cool offset path looks, and I will talk to you later.